Hey everyone, Boozor here. Welcome back. Um, in this episode, we're going to talk about the current HYDRA rotation, and maybe I just offer some insight on what you need to be successful and go over some more accessible champions uh, for substitutions. Basically, like when you're doing HYDRA, um, we want to fulfill certain rules to tackle the different HYDRA heads. So that's basically and once you have all of these abilities, the Hydra becomes much more manageable. And it's in your best interest to do as much Hydra as you can and do as high as you can because the Hydra drops the best sets in the game, as well as Soul Stones, which offer probably some of the biggest power boosts in the game for your champions. Um, And I mean, overall, if you can farm a good chunk of Hydra, you get a decent amount of gear per week. So it's definitely worthwhile getting better at, but it's definitely end game content that requires a pretty deep roster. Um, in some cases, very specific champions, and in some cases, multiples of specific champions. So it's not for everybody. But be sure to at least try to get the Mithrala fragments, as she's just an incredible champion for free. I know some people that got Mithrala before Lydia, which is actually kind of insane. Um, but yeah. Anyways, onto this rotation. So I might do a video every different Hydra rotation and just show some different strategies and how I would approach the matchup. So for this rotation, we have the Head of Decay, which is the cleansing head. Super annoying head, probably one of the most annoying heads. But Plarium did give us a little bit of a buff for the players, allowing the head to be provoked. So that means your roster needs to have some kind of provoke champion, consistent provoke. So ideally A1 provoke, or you can try a taunting set on an AoE champion. So that those are the ways to do it. I mean, not everyone will have it. Drexar is probably the most common one, or Visix. So those are some like really free to play options. Another really good one is actually Seeker. We'll get to him in a minute. But so there are some provoke options. Like the premium ones are like Krisk, obviously is like super premium. Um, yeah, I can't really think of another one right now, but Krisk is pretty premium. So the next head, we have the Head of Blight, which is the Poison Cloud head. Generally, the Poison Cloud head is pretty easy as long as you can get block buffs up on the whole Hydra team. The other way to handle it is to use HP burns. So HP burns that are placed, not hit, can be placed when the cloud is active. The other way to do it is to place the HP burn before the cloud goes on. So it's generally a pretty easier head. Something that doesn't get talked about a lot is that the Head of Blight, the poison head, actually deals quite a bit of damage to you. The AoE attack followed by I, I think 4 poison debuffs that it lands on you. It's quite a bit of damage that you have to soak up. So you definitely need some healing or cleanse to deal with that part of it. So keep that in mind. The next head is the Head of Suffering, which is the super tanky head. It boosts the Hydra team by 50 resistance. So this means the stats on your team need to be a bit higher for the accuracy. You can fix this by having an accuracy lead. But otherwise, you need to just overgear your champions a little bit for the accuracy. Otherwise, you're going to start getting resisted on certain things. The other thing that it has that's pretty annoying is the reflect damage. So if you're using like AoE big nukers, then you really want block buffs or a way to remove that buff from the Head of Suffering. And the last head in this rotation is the Head of Wrath. So this is the big damage head. a couple ways to neutralize this head. You have to have attack down, which is a big one, and block buffs, because you don't want um, the all his buffs landing on himself, like block debuffs, reflect damage, increase attack, and then slamming your team if you're not ready. So that's kind of the thing. It's Hydra in general is just being prepared most of the time, and then you're gonna have a lot smoother run. So be prepared for when your champion gets eaten. Be prepared when the big slams are coming. Um, yeah, you just have to be prepared, right? So yeah. So to deal with the head of wrath, so any block buffs is good attack down. You could also take advantage of the head of wrath if you have Geomancer. Basically have the Geomancer place the HP burn on the head that you want to take the most damage, and then keep triggering the head of wrath uh, into attacking you, because the head of wrath will attack on every 15th hit it takes. So you can kind of speed up how much damage Geomancer can pump out just by manipulating the head of wrath. It's an interesting strategy. I mean, in this run that I did, I actually used that a little bit. I'm sure that's just common practice nowadays, but it's just in case you guys didn't know that. And then on the bench, we have the Torment head and the head of Mischief, the Steel head. So if you get the Torment popping up, it's a bit of a pain in the butt if you don't have Shamail or Veil or Cleanse. Cleanse is like a tier C way of dealing with Torment, but it works. Um, Otherwise, it's when the Torment pops out, you just have to ignore it and pray that you don't get super messed up. Mischief can be handled with block buffs, so if you're bringing block buffs into this fight, Mischief will generally be okay. Um, yeah, it has much lower defensive stats, so it does die pretty quickly. So that's kind of what you're focusing on. I mean, usually you won't have Hex in your team as well, uh, especially in this starting line. If you see this starting lineup of Hydra heads, you probably won't have Hex, and I mean you just won't have Hex very often anyways outside of Mithrala. So the Mischief head, you either need good resistance or a way to block his buffs, which renders him pretty much ineffective. So right here on this image, we have the stats for Nightmare. Like we're not going to be doing Nightmare today. We're going to be doing Brutal because I used up my Nightmare key already. So I'll show you my Brutal team and I'll show you my thought process on which champions I wanted to take and what roles to fill. So I'll show you the stats for Brutal and Nightmare. Obviously, these will scale down if you're doing lower difficulty. But so for Brutal, this is what the resistance of the heads are. So general rule of thumb is you want accuracy to be minimum this number to have I believe it's like a 90% chance to land your debuff. Might be like 91%. So you need accuracy at least this number. If you want a slightly higher percentage chance, then you go for more accuracy. And then of course you have to factor in that the head of suffering will boost the resistance by 50. So you have to add 50 to all these numbers. So 300 roughly covers them all. And then in terms of accuracy, the reverse logic applies. So you want resistance at least 100 points higher than the highest accuracy. So in this case, Mischief, you want at least 450 resistance to reliably resist the steal from Mischief. Um, Unless you have a dedicated champion for this, for the resistance role, I wouldn't bother too much with it and just let Mischief steal. Especially since Mischief is on the bench this rotation, I wouldn't bother with resistance right now. You notice that Brutal and Nightmare, like the stat difference isn't overly that much higher. Like 450 resistance will still work on Mischief in Nightmare. It's kind of strange how they split up these stats, but these are the stats that we're gonna have to aim for, right? Okay, so just thing here. So this is my roster. I'll go over the team that I went with. Um, and I'll see if we can go over some different options. So the team that I went with was sorry, the team that I went with was Molly. So I went with Molly for my provoke option, mainly because this account doesn't have that many provoke options. I have a seeker, but it's in clan boss build. I'm gonna build a second one just for this particular scenario. Usually I use Husk. I only have one Husk on this account, which is actually kind of crazy. But I only have one Husk, and I don't have too many other provoke options. So yeah, I had to make do with Molly, and Molly's really good. I mean, you just have to have her kind of fast. She's in an arena build right now, so fast, good accuracy. I mean, you're gonna have good accuracy for the arena anyways. And she's really good as a reviver, and she boosts turn meter, so she speeds up your team. Not as good as obviously having increased speed, but she still has boosted turn meter. She doesn't deal a lot of damage, but she's not really there to do damage. She's there to help your team do more damage, and also to control the cleansing head. So I wouldn't use her in Nightmare, I think, just because you want every champion to do something more in Nightmare, because she doesn't do any damage. So that's kind of like the big problem, right? And honestly, she doesn't bring enough as a support uh, to not deal any damage. So Husk is usually my good provoke option. I'd build my Husk with accuracy, but in this rotation, I'm not using Husk because the cleansing head is actually Spirit affinity, so it's a bad affinity for Husk. So his provoke chance is going to be low, and his provoke chance is kind of low anyways, and his accuracy is not going to land it all the time on Nightmare, for example. But on Brutal, it should be okay. But because of the affinity, I kept Husk out. And because of the affinity spread, this rotation, um, which is, alright, this rotation. The affinity spread this rotation. Uh, is mostly very favorable to a magic team. So if you have magic, you go neutral affinity and positive affinity against 5 of the heads, and you only get countered by one head, and he's on the bench. So if you have a magic lineup, that's great. So that's why we're gonna look at champs that are either magic or maybe spirit. But spirit's honestly not even that great because it gets countered by three heads this rotation. So it's all magic. You want an all magic lineup if you can help it. So for damage, we went for roll guard. Obviously, like going with the magic theme. I went with roll guard. Big slam. I usually go with roll guard anyways for a lot of reasons. I have two of them. They're geared, similarly. I use this one for lower difficulty because of the accuracy requirement. They're in relentless. I don't have good reflex, and I have plenty of relentless that are pretty good. I use them in lots of other content, so they're not geared specifically for HYDRA, but this build works for HYDRA and is built for HYDRA specifically. The other DPS I chose is Geomancer. I think I went with the weaker Geomancer here. So this is my Iron Twins Geomancer. It has too much accuracy, speed's fine, survivability is fine. A couple refresh accessories just to help boost more HP burns. My other account doesn't have Geomancer, and it kind of sucks. So usually instead of Geomancer, I would put in another DPS, maybe a 2 roll guards or a Husk roll guard combination. That's kind of like the DPS you want for Brutal Nightmare. It's going to be max HP or Geomancer. And then the other champion I went with this rotation was Lydia. So in this fight against Brutal, I went with Lydia. She works well with the speed up and the strengthen, and I paired her with Uko. Uko leads, so Uko's going to bring the block buffs. So if you don't have Lydia, the other option is to use Ugo. Ugo is the other option. Ugo is actually basically like S tier, elite, ultra, omega, epic. This rotation. She's good affinity. She brings the block buffs, which counters like 4 of the heads, and brings AOE decrease defense with of team heal with the leech. She just does everything. She's an insane champion, especially for Hydra, and especially this rotation. If you have her, she goes in your top team. Okay, so since I only have one Ugo and I used her for Nightmare, I used Lydia instead for Brutal, and I paired her with Uko, who has the AoE block buffs as well. Although bad affinity, he's not super consistent, but I had no other option because I only have one one Ugo, so nothing I can do. So the team shows up as I'll show you guys the team. And the overall result, so team is this, and it scored 40 million. I mean, 40 million's okay. Oh, sorry, and my last champion is Riho Bonus Bear. So Riho could have been like a lot of different champions. Basically, she's only there to give us some survivability. I don't need her defense down or anything like that. I don't need HP burns from her. So she's only there to really cleanse and heal. And her heal is actually very significant, especially with the poison hit around, where you can remove the buffs and heal up. So if you have a good healer here, it can it just replaces her. Or if you have like a leech champion, an AoE leech champion could really work. I'm thinking Tila would work really good in this spot because she is got reworked and she brings AoE leech and hex, so that's extra damage, as well as just being like a overall like well-statted legendary. Tila would fit in pretty good here, but this is a pretty flexible spot. So what you're looking for is basically like an AoE block buffs, ideally. Ugo is the best bet if you have her. Some kind of damage, 2 damage dealers. You could go with Shamail, Rogard. Rogard's going to be really premium this rotation. If you have one, definitely use them. Make them fast, make them slam. Aim for about 220, 240 crit damage. You don't need accuracy, but he has good debuffs for accuracy. Especially if you don't have speed down champions, give him some accuracy so he can land speed down. Provoke champion, ideally maybe Seeker would be the best with attack up and speed up, and then that I think that would be probably the best. Obviously, Chris would be premium. Visix, Drexar, those ones can work if you have like no other options at all. So, and then you have your AOE defense down. Maybe you can bring a speed up. If you brought Uko, you can bring a speed up, and then you have your heal. So you have your heal option here. You don't necessarily need block debuffs, but a heal goes a long way in Hydra. So I'm just gonna put the run. I'm just gonna put the run here on in the background. If you guys are interested in watching, it's gonna be really fast and sped up. So and then we'll see you guys at the end of it. All right. I started this recording a little bit late, so the run had already started. But yeah, see you guys at the end of it. Alright guys, so nearing the end of the run, you see the run starts falling apart when the tournament head pops up. This team just couldn't really deal with the tournament head that well. Um, and yeah, but up until then we were doing pretty good. Just avoiding the tournament head. I think if you slot in Shamail, maybe, uh, if you had some better, maybe some champs that had more roles, you could probably slot in Shamail just as an extra DPS. Um, but it's more like insurance against torment. But nearing the end of the run here, um, yeah, I think overall this run was decent RNG. Not too insane, but decent. So you can tell, at 40 million, the threshold for brutal is like 30 million, and if we had a slightly better RNG at the end, maybe it could have been, it could have been a lot more. I mean, the team was pretty good. We had 2 revivers, which is really good because roll guard is actually pretty squishy. There's always a chance that roll guard falls down. Um, Brimstone for Lydia helps. Brimstone for Uko helps. Riho actually doing pretty decent damage considering she's only there for HP burns. Her damage only comes from HP burns. Geomancer doing a little bit, but not too much. Always surprising my Geomancer doesn't really do that much damage. Um, yeah, and in this rotation, Wrath was involved, so and I tried the strategy where I would try to trigger Wrath as much as possible, but we're gonna have to figure that out. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the run, and hope you guys enjoyed some of the insight. If you guys like the content, make sure you guys like and subscribe to the video. Still learning a lot, still trying to get back in the groove of things. I'm basically like making videos whenever I have time. That's why it's like might be sporadic sometimes. And yeah, but so far enjoying it. Really appreciate everybody's support, of course. It's huge. Yeah, until then, I guess we will see you guys in the next one. Take it easy.